The multi-party coalition in the city of Tshwane says it's very concerned about the outcome of the Auditor-General's report on the Tshwane Municipality. That report finding that the municipality failed to account for millions of rand it claimed to have spent on various service delivery activities. Let's find out more now, and we're joined by one of the coalition partners, ActionSA's Michael Beaumont, the chairperson of that party. Good morning to you, sir, and thank you very much for making it to studio. For viewers who may not be aware of exactly what's happening in Tshwane, let's talk about the amounts of money that the Auditor General says are not in order here, or perhaps cannot be accounted for. How much are we talking?
Well, I think there's obviously a lot of different findings of various kinds. And let me just start right from the outset saying we're very concerned about this outcome. We, as a group of political party, are not going to try and sugarcoat this and say that it's less bad than it is. It's bad, and there has to be consequences. By way of example, the figures around unauthorized, fruitless, irregular, and wasteful expenditure stands in the Auditor-General's report at over 10 billion rand. We know that the financial year in question was actually 1.2 billion rand, and that 10 billion rand is an accumulative figure over 10 years. But 1.2 billion is far too much, and there's a lot of things in this report that we are deeply concerned about.
The ANC is calling for the mayor's head, but before we get there, what did you find to be problematic? I listened to the mayor yesterday, and he seemed to suggest that he had been misled by the CFO about these numbers. What exactly is at play here?
So there's two elements to this, and I think we must be very frank about this. The reference to the CFO is partially correct. In our view, there has been a role played by the CFO where a lot of documents and submissions to the Auditor General did not take place. And the consequence of not submitting documents to the Auditor General is a negative finding, especially when those documents were available to be submitted, and that's deeply disappointing. But I think from our point of view, we're very concerned about the lack of political oversight and leadership of this particular issue. ActionSA has entered the coalition discussion on this matter saying, look, we understand the issue about the CFO. There must be accountability for municipal officials. But what do we talk about when we say political leadership and political accountability?
Sure. Because
you can't just have politicians who point to municipal officials when things go well, and when things would go badly. When things go well, it's all the political leadership's kind of credit to be taken.
Yeah. In a way, I'm reading into your words that you are suggesting that the mayor has to take some accountability here when you talk about the failure of political oversight. What should be done there?
Look, there's no question the mayor is the leader of the government. The buck stops with the mayor, and I think there's an appreciation of that completely. But as a multi-party coalition government, we aren't going to go through this exercise to push blame on one person. There's a mayoral committee. That mayoral committee consists of a number of political parties, including ActionSA's. And we're going to be going through this audit report over the coming days and identifying where political accountability needs to take place. Because it goes even beyond the issue of financial accounting and those elements. There's also questions of performance. As a multi-party coalition government, we have to provide an alternative to a track record of failed government in Gauteng.
Yeah.
And we have to be better than our predecessors. So we have to go through that and ensure that where departments have failed, the municipal officials and the political leadership must be held to account.
What does that mean in practice?
Well, the coalition is going to be getting together in the next 24 to 48 hours. I personally don't want to presuppose that discussion. That's going to be a discussion among all the political parties. What I can tell you is ActionSA will be going to that discussion to say there has to be political consequences for leaders who have been at the helm during this process and seemingly have been unaware of what was going on in this audit process and were not observing the issues of performance in their departments adequately.
You may not say it in words, Michael Beaumont, but what you are suggesting to me is that consequences have got to come, and it's got to come right down from the technocrats, namely the CFO, right to the mayor of the city. I wonder whether you're going to find favor with your coalition partner, the leaders of this coalition partner, that's the Democratic Alliance. Have you had a word with them about what possible consequence management is going to look like?
And we have, and we've already had an initial meeting in this regard, and I'd like to say to the Democratic Alliance's credit, they too are speaking the language of political consequences. And I think it's very important for all of us that we are able to show examples of governments that are different. I mean, let's be honest, there are municipalities across the country that get these kind of adverse findings all the time, and they get them year after year after year. That is not good enough. But if we are going to be better than those municipalities and their political leadership, and if we're going to provide an alternative to the South African people, we need to show that we take ownership of a bad result, and that we are going to put in place steps to ensure there is accountability and that there is improvement the next time the audit is published.
South Africans listening to you are going to love the tough talk that is coming from you. You are part of this coalition government. You are part of this mess. Amounts of 10 billion, 1.2 billion. It's huge sums of money, Mr. Beaumont. And I want to ask you a direct question then. The ANC, who obviously are in the opposition right now, those are the people that you are saying, when you came into this coalition, you wanted to be better than them or their performance record. Are you calling for the mayor's head?
I think it's way too early to talk about that. And I think ActionSA has to exercise its role within a multi-party coalition. I think it would be irresponsible of us as an individual party to make pronouncements. We need to operate within our coalition structures, which will be meeting over the next 48 hours. But certainly there has to be accountability with the mayor, with the members of the mayoral committee, and with all of those who were meant to provide political leadership over this time that clearly to some extent wasn't in place to the extent it needed to be.
For people who always have punted this line that where we govern better. Mr. Randall Williams is a member of the Democratic Alliance. Yes, you may not be a member of that party, but as people who are running that government together, that kind of talk is out the window. What happened to these monies actually? Were they misappropriated? Were they stolen, simply put? What exactly happened?
So the categorization of unauthorized, fruitless, irregular and wasteful expenditure obviously varies. But in many cases this is not referring to stolen money so much as funds that have not been gone through a procurement process in terms of the requirements of the legislation. In other words, there could be a scenario where something's gone over budget. There could be a scenario where a contract has extended beyond the period of time in which it has been allowed legally to take place. There have been a number of court cases in the city of Tshwane relating to the Pew contract and other issues, where issues have had to be continued to be paying a contract while matters were in court. All of these things generate towards that figure. It doesn't, however, excuse the fact that that number is far too high. It is very concerning, and I think particularly from a coalition partner's point of view, we do not manage the finance portfolio in the city of Tshwane. The news of this audit report was very much news to ActionSA as well, and it's very alarming because when you're in a coalition, you don't get to disassociate from a finding like this. You're very much part of it, and you need to be part of the solution now. And I think that's where we want to focus now. How do we fix this? How do we ensure there's consequences? How do we make sure that ActionSA is part of a better audit outcome in the next financial year?
Yeah, the residents, though, are going to be looking for visible action. And that means someone has got to be fired. There is talk that the matters around the mayor, they've been building up. It's been a cumulative effect stemming from that unsolicited tender, you will recall. Do you think that Randall Williams, his time is up in some way? Or, again, you're going to keep to the same line that it's too early to talk about releasing the mayor from his duties?
You know what it is, and forgive me, it's not a line. We're part of a coalition. And we are very critical of some of our coalition partners when they act unilaterally and they say things on behalf of the coalition. And we don't want to embark upon the same behavior. But, I mean, let me speak very frankly. We are concerned. There are issues in the city of Tshwane. We are on record in that regard. We weren't happy with the handling of the Rooiwal wastewater treatment plant issue. It too is another finding in the Auditor-General's report because of the ongoing failure to address that sewage crisis taking place in that part of the world. The Kratos unsolicited bid, we're on record about how unhappy we are about that. We have laid a complaint with the Speaker of Council in the city of Tshwane about the conduct of the Mayor in that regard for investigation. And we are concerned. We are concerned, and these things have to be addressed within the coalition.
Michael Beaumont, let me thank you very much for your time. We are going to be watching the space, and hopefully there is going to be some kind of action that is announced soon. Thanks indeed for joining us in studio here. He is the chairperson of ActionSA, part of the coalition partners in the city of Tshwane.